Marxism, Literary Theory and Practice, presented by Hanan Mudaffar. This is part of a series of lectures on schools of literary theory and their application to literature. Both theory and application are taken from Rivkin and Ryan's Anthology to Literary Theory, with the article on Shakespeare's King Lear used for the application. The presentation is enhanced with scenes from the 1975 BBC production of the play. Reading King Lear and watching the BBC production before starting the lecture would be beneficial. Marxism views human society as fundamentally shaped by material conditions and historical forces rather than by abstract ideas or ideals. At its core, Marxist theory focuses on the relations of production, who owns, who works, and how power operates through economic structure. Literature, like all cultural forms, is seen not as autonomous, but as deeply embedded in the struggles and contradictions of its historical moment. Marxist criticism invites readers to approach literature as a record of class conflict, ideology, and shifting material realities. A Marxist reading of King Lear, as we shall see later, analyzes how the play reflects tensions between feudal values and emerging material forces. Understanding how King Lear captures these tensions requires first a closer look at the fundamental claims of Marxist theory. Marxism begins with the claim that all aspects of society, including culture and literature, are rooted in material and historical conditions. Karl Marx formulated this view by analyzing 19th century industrialization and the emergence of new class structures, notably the bourgeoisie, who owned the means of production, and the proletariat, who sold their labor under exploitative conditions. For Marx, individuals are not autonomous beings, but products of historical forces operating through social, economic, and political structures. Literature, accordingly, is not the outcome of pure imagination or abstract ideals, but reflects the material realities of its time. This foundational understanding led Marxist critics to approach literature as both a product and a participant in historical processes. Traditional Marxist criticism holds that literature reflects the dominant values of the ruling class, shaped by the material conditions of a particular era. Shakespeare's plays, for example, affirm loyalty to monarchy, reflecting the dangers of political dissent during his time. This traditional model often sees literature as a reinforcement of existing power structures, naturalizing inequality through cultural forms. Later Marxist critics, however, recognize that literature is rarely a seamless reflection of ruling ideologies. Instead, literary texts often expose tensions between the idealized surface values and the lived contradictions of inequality and oppression. These insights laid the groundwork for further developments in Marxist criticism across different national traditions, especially in Britain and Germany. British Marxists like Raymond Williams and Terry Eagleton redefined Marxist literary criticism by emphasizing historicism. Historicism within Marxist theory investigates how political, social, and economic upheavals reshape literature across historical periods. Williams argued that literature evolves alongside changing material realities. Eagleton added that ideology shapes not only a text content, but also its very form. Cultural materialists advance these views by challenging the idea that literature merely mirrors the ruling class's values. Instead, they argued that literature often reveals instabilities within power structures, exposing tensions and contradictions even when appearing to affirm authority. While British Marxist theory emphasized historical and cultural analysis, German thinkers moved toward a more philosophical critique under the banner of critical theory. German critical theory emphasized the contradictions within capitalist society, as demonstrated by Walter Benjamin, Theodor Adorno, Ernst Bloch, and Herbert Marcuse. They argued that change arises through dialectical conflict, not smooth progress. Autonomous art offers resistance to commodification, while Benjamin showed how reproduction erodes art's aura and increases cultural control. Through the concept of the culture industry, Adorno and Horkheimer revealed how mass media standardizes culture and reinforces ideology. This approach expanded Marxist criticism, showing how art both resists and reflects capitalism and renews interest in historical historically informed literary analysis. Earlier historical criticism sought to place literary works firmly within stable, verifiable historical contexts. It treated history as objective, viewing literature as a mirror of factual historical circumstances. New criticism, reacting against historical approaches, championed the autonomy of the text, focusing solely on its internal structures. However, post-structuralist skepticism toward the objectivity of history led to a new form of historical criticism that treated history itself as constructed and contested. This shift opened the door for a reinvigorated Marxist approach that could now address history's multiplicity and instability. New historicism reasserted the relationship between literature and history, rejecting simplistic notions of historical truth. Drawing on Foucault's theory of discourse and Derrida's theories of unstable meaning, new historicists treated history as a network of competing narratives. Literature and history came to be seen as mutually constitutive, each shapes and is shaped by cultural meanings and power relations. Power, according to new historicists, is embedded not just in laws and governments, but in everyday practice and language. Stephen Greenblatt's concept of invisible bullets exemplifies this view, showing how acts of apparent subversion can ultimately reinforce dominant power structures. New historicism approach revitalized Marxist concerns with ideology, history, and material forces across broader fields of criticism. Today, historicism forms the basis for many critical movements beyond Marxism, including feminist, postcolonial, and ethnic studies. These fields analyze history both diachronically, tracing change over time, and synchronically, examining systems of meaning at a given moment. Saussure's work on linguistic structures and Foucault's genealogical method informs how critics understand cultural meaning as historically contingent. Literature is no longer seen as passively reflecting historical events, but as actively participating in the construction of historical consciousness. This broader historicist turn expands the possibilities for Marxist and post-Marxist approaches to literature. One way this expanded historicist approach manifests is through literature that challenges and rewrites dominant historical narratives. Alternative histories found in works like The Official Story and Frederick Douglass's narrative challenge dominant historical narratives. In The Official Story, a history teacher confronts the gap between state-sanctioned history and lived reality, uncovering a counter-discourse from the mothers of the disappeared. And in Wendell Phillips' preface to Douglass's narrative, The Fable of the Lion Who Cannot Tell His Own Story frames Douglass's writing as an act of reclaiming history from the perspective of the oppressed. These texts offer counter-discourses that contest, revise, and reimagine the meaning of history. Literature becomes a crucial site for ideological struggle, exposing and contesting the structure of power that shape historical memory. Through Marxist and new historicist perspectives, these works reveal how literature participates in the ongoing construction and revision of history itself. Now let's turn to how a Marxist reading helps us understand King Lear, not just as a personal tragedy, but as a reflection of deep historical and material shifts. A Marxist reading of King Lear reveals the play as dramatizing the collapse of feudal structures under material and ideological pressures. Lear's division of his kingdom treats political power as property, undermining the sacredness of monarchy. Cordelia's refusal to perform ritualized loyalty and Edmund's rejection of aristocratic privilege expose tensions between tradition and emerging materialism. Gloucester's loyalty to the old order blinds him to new opportunism, leading to his ruin. The play dramatizes the historical shift from feudal hierarchy to rising individualism, framing familial betrayal as a symptom of broader socio-economic collapse. Early on in Act 1, Edmund's soliloquy articulates his rejection of aristocratic birthright and celebrates ambition and merit. Let's hear these words.
Why, bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue. Why brand they us with baseness, bastardy, base? Who in the lusty stealth of nature take more composition and fierce quality than doth within a dull, stale, tired bed go to the creating a whole tribe of fops, got tween a sleep and wake? Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now, gods, stand up for bastards.
Edmund rejects being deemed base and celebrates his generous mind, his ambition, cunning, and self-advancements, as are clearly seen when he says, I grow, I prosper, aligning himself more with emerging capitalist ideals than with the fading feudal order. He frames inheritance laws as arbitrary, designed to preserve an unjust social order. His rhetoric aligns with capitalist values of self-advancements and individual merit. Meanwhile, Gloucester clings to feudal loyalty, failing to recognize the material forces reshaping the world. His literal blinding in Act 3 symbolizes the ideological blindness that prevents him from understanding social change.
Dark and comfortless. Where's my son Edmund? Enkindle all the sparks of nature to quit this horrid act.
Our treacherous villain, thou call'st upon him that hates thee. It was he that first made the overture of thy treasons to us, who is too good to pity thee.
Oh, my follies. Then Edgar was abused. Oh, ye kind gods, forgive me that and prosper him.
When Regan tells him that he is calling on the son who hates him, he realizes his follies in abusing Edgar. Through Edmund and Gloucester, Shakespeare dramatizes how historical shifts in material conditions, rising individualism, capitalist ambition, and collapsing feudal loyalties reshape both personal lives and entire societies. Lear's division of the kingdom further commodifies political authority, destabilizing the ideology of divine kingship. Betrayed by his daughters, Lear realizes that power and authority depend not on titles or rituals, but on material control. We see Lear's full realization of the world's brutality in this moment.
When we are born, we cry that we are come to this great stage of fools. This is a good block. It were a delicate stratagem to shoe a troop of horse with felt. I'll put it in proof. When I've stolen upon these son-in-laws, kill.
Here he is. Lay hands upon him, sir, your most dear daughter.
No rescue. What? A prisoner? I am even the most natural fool of fortune. Use me well. You shall have ransom. Let me have surgeons. And cut to the brain.
He realizes that there is no rescue coming his way in this stage of fools. His madness marks the ideological collapse of the feudal order he once embodied. The final acts reveal a world where loyalty, legitimacy, and authority are no longer stable values, but contingent upon shifting material realities. Shakespeare's tragedy exposes the fragility of ideological systems when faced with historical and material transformation. Through its portrayal of collapsing loyalties, shifting power, and rising material forces, King Lear ultimately reveals the deep historical and economic transformation that Marxist criticism seeks to uncover. Let's review. Marxist literary theory shows that literature emerges from material and historical struggles. Class conflict and economic forces shape both literary form and content, embedding ideological tensions within art. Literature can both reinforce dominant ideologies and reveal their internal contradictions. Through Marxist and historicist approaches, we uncover literature's participation in broader social struggles. Our analysis of King Lear shows us how the play reveals not only personal tragedy, but the violent collapse of an entire socio-economic order. Marxism ultimately teaches us to read literature as an active participant in history's unfolding conflicts and transformation. Thank you for your attention.